We don't work for them. We don't need the state. We can organise ourselves. If kids need football, we'll give them the best football. Boxing, we can do it. Bikes, we can do it. Rather than sitting here saying, why is the council not doing that? Why is that charity not doing that? Let's do it ourselves.
I am muted before you tell me. I realise, and it's not 10 o'clock anymore, it's 10:03. Good morning, everybody. I believe, if I'm right in saying, look at that. Look, I've got a new toy. Thursday is upon us. Look at that. I've been able to bring us all closer together. Good morning to you, Doreen. Good morning, Zen TV. Who have we got on X? Have we got anyone on X? Let me just I'm leaving my post. I'm still with you. I'm not really leaving. I'm just sort of refreshing my page. Hold on a minute. What do you mean this? It has started. It has started. This broadcast has started. We've got 15 viewers on X. Well, hey. Where's hold on. Where's me washboard? Good morning on grandad duties, so can't stay long. Well, Nigel, it's lovely to have you, however long you are able to stay with us. Look at this. Another good video to start the day. Thanks. Yes, that's with the boys. The strange conglomerate of Leith and Pennycook. Gutter blood. Oh hey, that's fancy. You're not joking. I can bring us all together now. Gutter blood. Great bunch of lads. Yeah, that's one of their earlier pieces. And Andy was on the phone to me the other day. We're heading to the studio to record some new material. So there's a couple of tracks that I've collaborated on with those guys. So hopefully, I think in November we're going to be recording them. So looking forward to that. Now, what have we got in our midst? It's Thursday. It's Thursday the 29th of August. We're nearly at the end of the month. Can you believe it? Anyway, welcome to What the X. Some of you must have actually been here for the whole month. And that's pretty cool. So respect to yourselves for those of you that have done that. Edinburgh looks real in archive footage. Yeah, it's got real people in it instead of, you know, nothing wrong with tourists and that, but like at some point it's like, what happened to the people that used to live here? Yeah, get out. Yeah, I need your bedroom for tourists. That's what happened to Edinburgh. You know what happened to Edinburgh is there's a lot of things that happened to Edinburgh, but Princess Street was one of the most prestigious streets in Europe, and in the last decade they knocked down St James's Centre essentially PFI'd the space, private finance initiative, to a Brazilian multinational that built a homogenous mega shopping complex. What do you call these things? Mall. A shitty mall that was fucking like, you know, that you would find in like the most shitty town in China that no one's even heard of, you know what I mean? Like just a crappy prefab mall. Filled it with expensive, stupid, crappy shops. All the money goes to this Brazilian multinational. They created this concept of the St James's Quarter. This is what people like Paul Lawrence and that think is a good idea. And meanwhile, to the complete detriment of Princess Street. So if you go along Princess Street now, it's like Skid Row. This is the vision that the people that are in charge of our city have got. And they're also the same people that are about to destroy the Roseburn cyclepath to put a tram up it. Something is rotten in the state of Denmark. Jenners is shot. Saw boys going round the YouTube going round the empty shell. Aye. It went on fire and a fireman died in the fire. So sometime, mate. Sometime. Anyway. We're all here. We've got 11 notifications on Twitter. Well, we've got 15 notifications now. Let's dive in. In fact, just before we do that, I'm just going to take you to VT for uno momento. Again, it's another form of social cleansing. If you live in the low emission zone and you've got a vehicle.
You see, when you are revolutionary and you talk the truth, people will come and slap you down. Then you talk the truth again, they lock.
Нет, замолчи. Капец.
Okay, apologies for that. I'm back once again. Okay, so there's a couple of things I wanted to check this morning. First of all, we'll go to our notifications and just see what's going on here. Mark Perry has followed me. I don't know who Mark Perry is. Mark Perry, this is Mark Perry here. Ginger hair is very acceptable. Quite right. Exceptional tune finder, music fan, Aberdeen fan, Dandy Dons, music enthusiast and truth seeker, Alba supporter, Sor Alba Gobrath. Well, Mark seems like a nice chat. Let's give him a follow. Let's give Mark a follow. There's nothing Mark has said so far that's made me feel hostile towards him. But that could all change in an instant. Ta fucking da. This was me responding to Keir Starmer is set to ban smoking outside of pub gardens, nightclubs and football stadiums, according to leaked government documents. Because this is all that they can do. And I was kind of smugly going like, I tell you. And this is an example of the kind of authoritarianism that these pointless neoliberal bureaucrats got a hunger and a thirst for during COVID. But these ones were the ones that were in opposition at the time. So, you know, there's no COVID, but they're going to act like there is at all times, you know, because that's all these people can do. If you look at somebody, for example, of a sort of authoritarian teapot. Like take somebody like Scott Arthur, you know, this muppet that has caused so much destruction to Edinburgh. And they're basically all just versions of Scott Arthur to varying degrees, you know. And this is what they've got. They've got no policy. They've got no idea how to do anything. I'm going to find that clip of. I'll find it now. I saw a particular account that posted it. Leith Nostradamus. What will you do? This is towards. I got involved in this. Yeah, R.I.P. Sweet Girl. This was a child that had perished in Gaza. This little child had died just from shock. Her heart had stopped. You know? Such was the terror. She died of fear. There's something just even so incomprehensibly crazy about that. And the same issue that was going on was this, you know, this Graham Linehan guy. I was kind of had some spat with that fucking muppet in Bath yesterday. And we'll get onto that in a bit. But you know, people who are publicly, you know, pro-Zionist or ridiculing people that are opposing this horror are really the scum of the earth, really. I don't know why anybody would, you know, what's the difference between that and like going, well, I've got some mates who are Nazis who are alright about folk getting exterminated in concentration camps and gassed to death. But, like, I didn't agree with them on that, but there's other things that I do agree with them, so I'm not just going to stop, I'm not just going to ignore them because of that. It's like, I'm not being funny, like. Where do you draw your moral code from, like, you know? Satan's arsehole. Anyway. 21 of us now. Let me quickly find that clip of the account that I saw it on. Is it that Silvio Tatisconi account? I don't know, how do you spell it? I don't know what it is. Somebody put a link up. Exposing the hypocrisy. Here it is here. Let's just look at what he says.
Fuel allowance from pensioners. His paymaster... Last year, the Prime Minister was apparently drawing up plans to remove the winter fuel allowance from pensioners. His Paymaster General went a step further. He said these are the sorts of things that we need to look at. So will he now rule out taking pensioners' winter fuel payments off them to help fund his £46 billion black hole? Last year, the Prime Minister was apparently drawing up...
Does anyone have anything to say about this? This is the neoliberal political class, and this is Keir Starmer, a hypocrite, a liar, a man with no principles. Our new Prime Minister. And a Zionist to boot. There we are. Well, I wanted to do something a wee bit different just now because this was the week that was it this week? Was it this week or last week actually? That's the rate of the pace of what the X and the crazed news cycle. But our drug death stats were revealed and they were shocking again. And I thought, I haven't had a chance to really focus on this, but I noticed that Jim Slavin had interviewed Anne-Marie Ward for his podcast. all hail the pod. And I thought, well, why don't we all just take a wee bit of time just to have a little listen to it together? And maybe not the whole thing, but well, let's have a wee listen and see where we get with it. And I can post a link, but I really want to listen to it because I've been wanting to catch up with it. But you can comment, and I'll put your comments up on the screen as well. So let's just take a little bit of time here just to listen to a bit of what Jim was saying to Anne Marie Ward, because I really want to hear what the conversation was. And I'm finding myself with less time these days. So if you don't mind, I'd like to have a wee listen. So why don't you join me? Why don't we all have a little listen just now for a little bit and see what Anne Marie Ward's saying. I'm going to stop this and I'm going to take us 1 second. I know you like this. I know you like watching me peering into the screen. That's something they said here. Maybe if I go up to here. What have we got here? Sounds like a plan. Okay. Let me just. Okay. So we're going over here. So this is Jim's Solidarity, Not Charity, and the reason also was that the Gutter Blood track that I started with, the end sample that Gutter Blood used on that track was Jim Slavin talking about his Solidarity, Not Charity. So let's have a wee listen to some of this, if we will. I'm just going to mute my mic and take myself off the screen for a minute. But I'll put your comments up if anybody's got any comments.
This is All Hail to the Pod. Last week, the latest figures for drug deaths in Scotland were released, confirming Scotland is the worst in Europe. Drugs and the impact they have on individuals, families and communities is a multifaceted problem. Criminalising users is not a solution. Stigmatising addicts is not a solution. The current drug policies being pursued by the Scottish Government are not a solution. To discuss this problem, I spoke to Anne Marie Ward, Chief Executive of Favour UK, an addiction charity promoting recovery, and one of the leading advocates for policy change in Scotland. Anne Marie, welcome to the pod.
Hi, thanks for having me, Jim.
No, thanks very much for taking the time to speak to us. I know you're really busy and I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk to us. We are talking here the day after Scotland's drug death figures have been released for the year, and they are again a complete disgrace. So I really want to get as an expert and you, somebody working at the front line, to get your perspective on that. There's so many layers to this. I think to begin with, just to give listeners a sense here, if we separate off the problem, which are clearly connected, between addiction and recovery. And just to begin with the addiction question, it seems to be Scotland are getting both ends of that wrong, as my perspective as an outsider. And I mean, what are the drug usage rates like in Scotland compared to other places? What are we taking so much more drugs? Is that the explanation with the drug deaths, or is it something else? So tell me, in terms of addiction and drug usage, where does Scotland sit? What's happening?
Well, no, we're not. Per population, we don't use any more drugs than, England or Wales or anybody. The problem is that our treatment system's different. That's the real problem, In England, they've got a treatment system that helps people to recover, and it's made up culturally of over half the workforce are people in recovery, whereas in Scotland, it comes through the public sector, so it's really kind, compassionate social workers and nurses. And they're addiction experts. They know a lot about addiction, but they don't know the first thing about recovery. So the tiny, tiny percentage of Scotland's workforce are people in recovery, and the difference that makes is when you walk into a service in England, which also comes through the third sector, by the way, not the public sector, which means you get a quicker response. So you'll probably be seen on the day that you approach the service in England, and for the most part, whereas in Scotland you'll wait sometimes months for an appointment because it's coming through either this, the NHS or the local authority. But crucially in England, you'll be met by somebody like me, somebody who's recovered. And also the two things that are crucial about that is there's hope right away, because transformed people transform people, right? But there's also an expectation that you're going to recover. Whereas in the culture of the services in Scotland, because it's those really kind, compassionate, highly professionalised nurses and social workers, there isn't the same expectation, because they don't even have the institutional memory of helping people recover within the workforce. 20 years ago, we stopped sending people to rehab. We stopped doing community rehab. We stopped, doing community detoxes basically in Scotland. So even the workforce has lost the memory of how to do it. So that's the problem. It's no that we are the train trot spotting generation or any other nonsense that you might hear. It's our treatment system is not fit for purpose. And when you're asking about drugs, Scotland uses, we're the highest cocaine users in the world. So over 80% of those deaths that were announced yesterday were prescribed. They had prescribed methadone in them, and over 40% of them had cocaine in them. We're starting to see these fentanyl, nitazene deaths as well starting to play a part, and obviously street benzodiazepines are playing a huge part as well. So methadone now outpaces heroin deaths in Scotland, which is incredible.
It is incredible, and it does. I mean, we did hear all of these sort of explanations Trotty do yesterday about like the train spotting stuff and the sort of cultural differences in Scotland. There was all sorts of explanations for it, but I mean, it does seem to me that in terms of the Scottish Parliament, 25 years, we're now in this situation with drug deaths, and this isn't like a abnormal figure. I mean, they've been ridiculous and outrageous for years, as you know, better than most people. But also in terms of drug use, so we haven't managed to do anything about that either. Like, I mean, there is a huge problem. As you say, cocaine now is like extremely high. It's now impacting on these stats in a way that it wasn't a few years ago in terms of cocaine's contributory factor. And that would be a drug that people wouldn't associate with drug deaths. So somewhere along the line, it seems to me that we've missed in 25 years of the Scottish Parliament an opportunity to do something about some of these things differently, and we've chose to do them differently, but in a really bad way, in a way which has made matters worse, no better. Is that accurate?
That's very accurate. We stopped investing in prevention treatments in our schools 20 years ago as well. We stopped prevention and recovery. Sorry, we stopped investment in recovery services. So we've only been really focusing on investment in harm reduction interventions, which essentially are substitute prescriptions and clean needles. And you're right, we've normalised drug use now in Scotland. We've turned a blind eye. Nicola Sturgeon summed it up perfectly when she said we've took our eye off the ball. So, but I'm a believe it or not, although I'm a huge critic of what's happening, I am actually a natural optimist, and I think we can change this, Jim. In fact, I know we can, because if you think about it in social engineering terms, which is what they've done and what we've been doing for the last 20 odd years by default, even something as simple as smoking, we found, we socially engineered that, so it was shameful and socially unacceptable, etc. Seatbelts is another great example of social engineering. At first, everybody was, annoyed about having to wear the seatbelt, but it saved lives, you know what I mean? And as soon as people got that message, it was like it's second nature now to put your seatbelt on. It's second nature not to light up a fag in the pub or in a public place, So these things can be solved, but the political will has to be there, and the Scottish people have to ask for it. But unfortunately, there's a huge emphasis on what people like to think is their bodily autonomy and human right to take drugs and to do what they want with their own bodies. And in fact, and I would agree with a lot of that in many ways, but see, when it starts to harm families and communities, which it has done catastrophically in Scotland, well then, we have to have a conversation about rights and responsibilities, not just about, my right to harm myself.
No, I think that's right, and I agree with you. I'm an optimistic person as well, and I think we absolutely could turn the tide back on this. But the messaging, both in terms of that sense of acceptance and almost celebrating drug use in some way culturally, and the political discourse has to be challenged and then changed. I watched the BBC Evening News last night about these drug figures, and I was struck by the reporting. Before we spoke to the minister, they said, oh, the Scottish Government have said they're going to take this very seriously, and they've got three measures that they want to highlight. One of them was safe consumption rooms. One was they were going to increase the use of a drug that stops overdoses, which I can never pronounce the name correctly. And the other one, they were going to do drug check-in services to make sure the drugs were safe for people. But what struck me about the three priorities that they were saying to deal with this was none of them dealt with the fundamental question that we should be telling people that taking drugs is harmful, it's dangerous, and it destroys lives, families, communities. We seem to have just completely lost that now. Now it's like you're not allowed to say that in case it stigmatizes people. Now, I don't want to stigmatize anyone. I don't want to criminalize anyone. But we hope to send a message out that actually people are dying here. And working class communities, it is destroying people. And we need to say, actually, it'd be better if people didn't do that.
Yeah, and that's why I refer to the human rights, the weaponization of human rights agenda. That's exactly what's happening here, because you say that beautifully there. The decision, that to open this legal drug consumption facility in Glasgow it's an admission of failure, but the Scottish Government are, saying it's a measure of progress. It's a clear sign that the system has utterly lost its way, Jim. And when it comes to helping people get clean and free from dependency, they don't know how to do that anymore. This facility is not a solution. These drug checking services that they want to set up are not a solution. They would just further compound and normalise drug use. This is a resignation to the idea that people will remain addicted, and at best it amounts to nothing more than palliative care for those who are suffering. And not only that, they're medicating poverty, right? And it's almost insulting to hear the champions of these types of interventions claim that this facility and drug checking services, etc., can serve as an access point to other forms of care and recovery, because this is blatantly untrue. Especially yesterday, we saw in the interview with Conor Gillies on Sky News, the minister himself admitted that they are still scrambling to provide a mere 140 rehab beds for the entire country. Come on. I've been trying to pin them down to that. They've been claiming that you'll hear the spin, they'll say, oh, there's almost 1,000 beds. There isn't. Scotland deserves better than a system that only claims to manage addiction rather than offering real tangible paths to recovery. This isn't progress. This is the surrender of any kind of hope.
I think that's really striking. I mean, we need to be clear. People maybe would see these, particularly people who didn't live in schemes or didn't have any sort of lived experience of drugs, would maybe see these figures and they imagine it's somebody, using just injecting heroin in a stairwell or something like that. They have some vision here. But a lot of these people are dying are people who are actually asking for help. They're asking for recovery. They're asking to be helped off drugs. And as a nation, as a state, as a government, we're failing their people. So this is people who want to get off drugs. And instead of that, because there isn't the beds there for them, there isn't the services there to get them off drugs, they've been pushed into methadone or some sort of harm reduction program, which is about allowing them to take drugs in a safe environment. But that's not what they're asking for. They're asking to come off drugs.
Yeah, and the harm reduction philosophy and ideology is something that, most people would subscribe to, like, of course we want to lessen harm. But when your whole system is bent on only providing those types of interventions, it then becomes something else, Jim. It becomes enablement. If you're not providing a way out and you're only providing safe facilities to take drugs, safe injecting equipment, and listen to the language here, safe, right? Safe, safety checking services. This messaging is telling young people and kids in particular, and anybody else who's in the vicinity, that taking drugs is safe, and you and I know, and everybody in the scheme knows, and the dogs on the street know that the methadone program hasn't worked. And you said it earlier, you said about like you're no stigmatising drug users. Any sort of criticism about the methadone programme or the lack of services to help recovery is then twisted to say, oh, you're being stigmatising, you're being a bigot, you're being, in fact, you know, right-wing bigot is a regular slur for me. In fact, yesterday I was a Tory shrill, a Labour shrill, an SNP shrill, a Unionist shrill, a Nationalist shrill on the same day. Do you know what I mean? Like the people have lost their minds politically when actually, as I said, the Dugs in the street know the methadone programme isn't working and people can't get access to services and everybody who comes forward to a service asking for help, that's what they want. They want freedom for dependency, and we're not doing that anymore.
No, we're failing these people. And in terms of that word safe used all the time, I seen one of them saying a few weeks ago, a politician or somebody for a Quango or whatever, saying about safe supply. And I think if you live in a scheme, you know, like, I mean, there's no any, you know, drugs are supplied or it's openly, it's wild, it's everywhere, it's on the street, there's no any. And then there was this politician saying, oh, we need to ensure safe supply of drugs for people. And you think, the world's gone mad. Like, I mean, there is something about this. It
It's
isn't
not just,
working.
it's not just that, it's incredibly naive, and it's usually middle class people who are saying that nonsense, you know, like they think if we just regulate and, you know, get our drugs checked and like, but actually in the places where this has actually been done, like Vancouver, San Francisco, Oregon, what happens is the criminal gangs, you know, the arguments for legalization, decriminalization are always about getting rid of criminal gangs and getting a safe, regulated supply. And all that happens, Jim, is the addicts themselves sell the pure quality stuff that they're getting after clinic. And the criminal gangs just make something like cheaper, stronger, better drugs to go in the black market. The black market doesn't disappear. So there's an incredible naivety for the middle classes around this, you know. And they call it a wicked problem, and it's not. It's a very, very simple, straightforward problem. You're medicating poverty. If you look at the deep end GP practices in our poorest communities, that's what they're prescribing: painkillers, they're prescribing sedatives, prescribing sleeping tablets much higher in our most affluent communities. So again, it's this cultural messaging all the time that, you know, we're all mentally ill, we're all, you know, we all need some sort of fix, we all need to be doing, you know, something to make us better somehow. And actually probably all we need to do is be hanging about with each other a wee bit more and, you know, talking and going for a walk in the park. That's probably the best thing that'll lift your mood out of any drug that any doctor can prescribe you, you know, a walk in the park with a pal.
And
I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's true.
no, I absolutely agree with you. I mean, that is there's the way, and we take it. I mean, if we look at the distinction that the state makes, which I am greatly interested in, but they make a distinction between legal and illegal drugs and all the rest of it. But whether you think illegal drugs or illegal or prescribed or however you define it, it is absolutely true that more and more people are one way or another taking drugs, and whether it's off the street or whether it's the prescribed, and that is having a detrimental impact. We can see the numbers in terms of mental health, for instance, and that is across. It's not just in Scotland, that is a problem across the West. But I think also in terms of these criminal gangs, I mean, if you live in a working class area, if you deal with these things, if you look at all the businesses that are, I'm sure Glasgow's the same, Edinburgh's loads of prominent businesses and sports groups and what have you that are funded by these gangs, it's quite clear that they operate within the orbit and logic of the state. Like, there isn't really a serious attempt to disrupt or eradicate these gangs. Like, middle class politicians maybe say that, they might even believe it, but on the ground, we all know that's not what's happening. Like, but tell me in terms of class, because you mentioned these middle class politicians, and we can think of like middle class academics that are involved in all this stuff as well. And because the causes, the underlying causes of people getting into addiction in the first place and then needing recovery services are about trauma, they're about poverty. And we're not doing anything in Scotland to eradicate these things either. These things are getting worse after 25 years of the Scottish Parliament. They're not getting any better. Is that your experience in the front line?
That's absolutely my experience in the, you know, the political elite, like you said, you know, there's particularly in Scotland, it's so easy to see in Scotland once you've got eyes for it, you know, like the academics, the quangos, you know, they all shift and move in between each other's jobs. You know, they'll end up at the policy unit, then they'll be running a charity, and then they'll be, you know, commissioning a piece of research or on a task force, or you know, and it's the same people, you know, scratching each other's back all the time. And these are politically elite people who, you know, that I don't have anything against the working classes, you know, God bless them, do you know what I mean? But sorry, the middle classes, I can, you know, I live in social housing in the West End of Glasgow. I live in a really affluent part of Glasgow, and it's beautiful here, do you know what I mean? And less than a mile at my window there, we've got the scheme, you know, we've got Posso and Mary Hill and Sight Hill, and I'm at home anywhere I go, and I know that these people earn, do you know what I mean? They're really itching out their skin when they come into our territory, and I just don't understand why they think they can tell us how to live our lives, and like, you know, come with this nanny, and it does feel increasingly more authoritarian, like a nanny state, you know, like we're being told what is good for us, and you know, like it's, you know, again, the messaging around addiction, and you know, there was a guy called Carlton Brick who wrote a great blog, CIEO blog, about Scotland's failed addiction war and addiction, you know, and it was, I remember taking part initially in the sort of scoping exercise for it, because they talk a lot about that, don't they, in the middle classes, and task force, and you know, like stakeholders, and all the sort of language which is basically just middle class people. One of my pals in Blackpool described it perfectly. He says all the middle classes drive into the scheme in the morning and at 9 o'clock, and then Monday to Friday they drive back out. You know, it's like they're now our keepers or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, and the massive industries that have been built around it, whether it be mental health industries or the addiction industries, poverty industries, it's all very, very depressing. Sorry. Yeah.
No, and one of the things in terms of specifics, say like talk about drugs and recovery, one of the things that I've found quite challenging or difficult over the years working in working class communities and talking about community self-organising has been when you come up across and you want to raise the issue of drugs, because it's a big issue, but you find a lot of people didn't want to talk about it. Politicians they want to talk about it. They didn't, you know, they're quite happy to take funding for community groups that they know are funded by drug gangs or whatever. But if you point things out to them, they didn't want to really pursue it. And there's been a sort of sense in which what we do is these sort of middle class missionaries is whenever they're under pressure because of their failed policies, what they do is they bring people out who have what they describe as lived experience. I'm not sure what other type of experience they might have, but they say these persons got lived experience to defend the position. And so people like myself who didn't take drugs and who aren't in that world, it's like, well, then I'm not allowed to say anything because I've got to be listening to the person who they bring out to defend what they're doing. And you know that this poor person who's maybe got a position on their committee or is maybe given a wee pat in the head for the missionaries, but ultimately they're not making the decisions. They didn't really care this person. It's middle class people that are making the decision. So how do you navigate that as somebody that's working with it day in, day out? Because I found it quite frustrating.
Aye, that's absolutely brilliant. I've never heard it described like that. I'll need to use that, middle class missionaries. Aye. And you're right, is the lived experience is then weaponized, and it becomes they roll, like you say, they just roll people out, and this is the lived experience voice, and well, we challenge that, don't we? Because we're like, no, it's no. And we actually say there was a paper written about this event he's interested by a guy called William White, and it's called Double Agentry. And it's where lived experience voices are co-opted by institutions or organisations. And I read that very early in my career, and I was, you know, alongside another paper he wrote about the ethics of affiliation with pharma companies and drug companies. And I concluded, you know, that I'll take as much as their money as possible on our terms, and I'll spend it on the people that are needing help. But I think that co-option and like you said, the wee pat in the head and rolled out, I see it all the time. And then what's worse, there's actually people who do have lived experience who work for these organisations who defend them. I put a critique yesterday of just the tone of the Simon community's statement about the drug deaths. You know, they put out a really, I mean, it was a lovely, sincere statement, I'm sure, about how sorry they were about how many people were dying, but there was no challenge in it about the lack of access and choice of services, you know, because they're on the government's teat, so they're not going to challenge it. And I say, you know, I say that in a really sort of, well, I hope in a very articulate way in writing. I'm much more articulate in writing than what I am in person, but and you know, I was sympathetic to the cause that they're, or the cosh that they're under. I was saying, you know, but until organisations who are on the teat start to speak out and don't, you know, accept the crumbs, because that's what's happening here. They're so desperate for the crumbs of, you know, the government's money, or taxpayers' money, rather, should I say, that they're willing to give a benign or a banal, sincere, sad statement about the deaths, but not challenge it in any way. And right away, there's somebody on criticising me for saying, oh, well, the staff worked really, really hard. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not criticising the staff here, I'm criticising the system, you know, like belt up, wake up. So you get people like that as well who can't see the wood for the trees. They take it personal and they think it's about them, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And I've noticed that a lot, and I think that applies beyond what we're talking about in terms of drugs of recovery. I mean, if you look at a lot of what's happening with community organisations, charities across Scotland, I mean, we can see it in the cultural sector now as well, in terms of cuts to funding, and all of a sudden people are speaking up. But these are people who have said nothing. Well, communities have been absolutely decimated, like they didn't have anything to say.
Okay, I'm going to stop that there and I'll post the link to it. I think that's an excellent, as ever, discussion between Jim and Anne-Marie there. I think that it raises a lot of interesting questions. Let me just pop that. Is that going into the chat? I noticed we had a consistent list. I was enjoying listening to that, so I noticed it was a bit of an unusual, unusual choice of content for What the X. But there's no rules. There's no rules on What the X, and I probably wouldn't have found the time to listen to that. I'll catch up with the rest of the end of that discussion later on. But I think somebody like Anne-Marie, who I think is an excellent advocate for the type of treatment that we require in Scotland, and Jim, who I've got a lot of respect for as well, I thought that they made there was some great points raised there. I noticed that we've got some comments here saying she's looking at clamping down on people rather than looking at the causes. No, I don't think that's what Anne-Marie is actually saying there. I think that what she's saying is that the treatment programme, we don't have adequate treatment facility at all, and that the sort of PR coated measures that have been brought in by the Scottish Government are essentially kind of like a sticking plaster for a much greater wound. But I'd be interested to know what anybody else thinks about this. It's an issue that I've long had a big problem with. I think it's a disgrace. I think it's a total indictment on our country. It's disgusting the amount of people that are just left to waste, and the impact that it has on communities. Don't get me wrong, you know, I am a bit of a, you know, I think that people should be allowed, but I think Anne-Marie alluded to that as well in the interview. You know, she wasn't saying that she didn't think that people should have body autonomy. It's just that there's a certain point where certain substances in certain situations and certain social circumstances conflate to have a hugely detrimental impact on both the individuals, their families and the wider communities. And obviously these are questions of poverty, these are questions of social deprivation, etc., etc. But you know, and it's always that sense, isn't it, that it's the academics and the middle class, the experts that are, you know, Darren McGarvey would always use that term. I thought it was a brilliant term where he talks about them being parachuted into their communities, you know, and I think that none of that's changed. None of that's changed. And as soon as you and Jim's position of solidarity, not charity, you know, because Jim recognised that, you know, the charities themselves become kind of supplicants of the state. Anyway, I've put that in there. Let's go back here. It would be nice if politicians. Oh, I can give you this. Did that work? Yeah, it did. I've got my screens mixed up here. It would be nice if politicians. John McFadden says, apparently Jenner's was the easiest shop in Edinburgh to shoplift out of. According to those in the know, I quite like the the off topic, or perhaps John said that earlier. I didn't see. I was about to say something about this as well, Doreen. I couldn't get my head around this the other day there when I saw an interview on Scottish TV where they were talking to somebody and she had been in and out. She'd been trying to get in rehab and they didn't have a rehab space for her, but they'd upped her methadone and they were like, well, what? Presumably you were like a smackhead or whatever, or, you know, heroin addict. And she's like, no, I had a cocaine addiction. And Doreen says the tragedy of giving cocaine and crack users methadone only exacerbates the issues and causes yet another addiction issue for the use. Yeah, this is insanity. And somebody's making money with all that methadone getting dished out. So it is a bit of a farce. It's beyond farcical, really. But I would encourage everyone to take to listen to the rest of that discussion between Jim and Anne-Marie, and also to subscribe and follow Jim's All Hail the Pod, because he consistently covers great topics and interviews interesting people. So cocaine is truly evil, yes. Cocaine is truly evil. It is. It's a strange drug, cocaine, isn't it? You know, and it does induce a certain profound level of shite talking. Doreen says, I stopped working 8 years ago, and it was rife in the prescribing services. Yeah, I've seen it firsthand in Mexico. It is also fun. This is the paradox of drug use, you know. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not getting into the condemning all substances. But I do think that there's a lot of issues with like miscategory of substances. I think substances are all thrown into the same box, and that's a problem. And that's not the best idea. And certain substances, for example, psychedelics, and like, you know, they really don't deserve to be categorised as Class A drugs and stuff. These are more medicinal. And these are substances that have got something very innate and profound to do with what we are as the beings that we are, and how they impact our consciousness. And that's a different thing altogether. In fact, just to be clear, I was a, to all intents and purposes, what would, you know, I would say I was an alcoholic, really, when I was still drinking. And after I took DMT, I never drank really much, pretty much not long after that. And one of the reasons about that was a direct sense of what the DMT experience had a profound impact on my personal perception of alcohol. And I'm by no means the only person to have experienced that. And I think that, genuinely believe that psychedelics can be one of the most effective tools in addiction recovery. And this is a landscape that's not particularly explored yet, because the establishment is generally terrified and upset by what psychedelics are, primarily because they tend to probe the consciousness of the human species, and they might make you question some of the things that go on in ways that you didn't previously question them or even realise could be questioned. What have we got going on here? That's the Hicks bit. You've never seen an advert for Coke. It sells itself. That's why prohibition will never work. Rocky vibrations, absolutely, Bob. I assume that's in reference to my psychedelic perspective. Bob McRogan. I might have to get a sin bin and put. I might have to get us. There'll be a timeout for certain comments, right? I also met a Colombian guy in Mexico. He told me stories of the mayhem it caused in military gangs and why he left in the 80s. Yes. Opinion. It's 10:53. No, neither does that. I had no idea they gave methadone to people for cocaine addiction either. Whoever signed off on that needs sacked. I think we'll have a for those of us who have got experience of substances, you know, some more than we would care to admit. That is a Raj decision, and kind of smacks of just the ignorance of. But someone's making money out of that. You got to remember, people making money out of that. It's kind of weird. Edinburgh drugs. You know, one thing that's never really understood is that, you know, certainly throughout the 80s, the 70s, and the 80s, well, like, you know, into the 80s, I had a kind of weird connection to this stuff, even as a kid, because my old man was a pharmacist, right? And he used to make. I mean, he was kind of like. It's not hard to explain, right? But basically, we lived at, and where we lived, right, was right next to where a whole section, like just two seconds away from where we lived, basically, like all the drug addicts got kind of put in the same area. This was the sort of bright idea of the council in the 80s, and my old man was basically like the main point for where they got their methadone and stuff, like, you know. But he had a good dynamic with them. He was good with them, and you know. He had a good rapport with a lot of them because he's a good guy, you know. That's the kind of guy he is. But he basically, they would come to the door, you know, when I was a kid, because they'd maybe been in the nick or something, and they'd come to the door like, you know, 7, 8 o'clock at night, and they'd be like, rattling, you know, is your old man in and that, and then he would go down to the chemist and like mix them up their meth in the evening sometimes even. Do you know what I mean? That was not an uncommon occurrence, you know. And a lot of them died, and a lot of them, like, you know, there was so many stories, you know, and I kind of knew about this whole section of the culture. But then, see, if you lived in the scheme, and if you were in places like Muirhouse or whatever, you know, to know of people that just died, and to have family members that got the cowie or all the rest of it, like that's common, and people really don't. I don't think people really understand or appreciate just how much that was rife within people's lives, and you know, continues to be part of their history, and it's also, you know, it's coming back in many ways. We haven't had effective drug prevention, and then I myself and many others, you know, we've all lost friends and close friends and what have you to drugs within the Scottish landscape of how we deal with addiction. So, you know, there we have it. Let's dive into the extremities. A shower of utter cunts, yeah. This was the thing yesterday. There's two things going on here, isn't there? What have we got here? The classification of psychedelics has nothing whatsoever to do with harm reduction, and everything to do with keeping people primed to turn up every day at work, unquestioningly for the man. I couldn't have said it better myself, Miguel. I couldn't have said it better myself. Right. The Oasis thing was crazy. I think it's, see, I would love to come on here and just have a laugh, right? And everybody like, let's keep it frivolous. But you know, we've got a genocide, and we've got our own domestic issues with this continual, you know, plus 1,000 people dying every year, and really just, you know, nothing really getting done about it. And I think the more people need to listen to people like Jim Slavin and Anne-Marie Ward, in my opinion. These are the people that need to be listened to. And so if we can take time to just, you know, let's listen to people like that. Let's see what they've got to say. I think it's important. And, you know, hey, I'd love to just come and tell some jokes. But I think, you know, what is it? This is no time for levity or whatever, you know? Exactly. We've got Samuel says, right on, brethren, no doubt as a response to Miguel's very perceptive point there. The Sky Blue says, exactly. Just clever enough to work the machines, as George Carlin said. We'll hang about a little longer. It's just coming up to 11. We'll stick around a little longer. We'll maybe go back to this Oasis chat, right? Because it did kind of make me laugh. There's been a spate of the more it goes on, the more it's clear that it's just total and utter. It's total and utter class prejudice. What's going on with the Oasis thing? Now, yesterday I didn't read it. I just responded to it because I was like, "What a." That's basically what I'm. Gutter blood. I must. It's my. It's my me microphone. So I said yesterday, I genuinely can't get my head, my scone round folk being so hostile to Oasis. They make loads of cunts happy, folk get cunted and built out their songs, they're just a band. Does it really require this degree of maddened exasperation and deep analysis? Gutterblood have responded and said, made this point just last night. Far too much over-analysis of a band that made a good few folk happy. Whatever you think of them musically, they got young folk of the time back into guitar music when techno was the thing. That Guardian piece was squeamish, and I tell you what I'm going to do, just for the benefit of all you, I'm going to read the Guardian piece, because I never read it, but I did comment on it. I couldn't bring myself to read it. I kind of just scanned the general vibe of it, and I was like, get to fuck. I was like, fuck off. So what we'll do is, I'm just going to look for the... This was David Jameson qualifying the Alan McGee story that I put up the other day there, that we spoke about the other day. It was back on the Oasis theme, right, you know? But Alan McGee basically flounced because he was maybe he was intimidated by the middle classness of David Jameson. Because in a reverse class prejudice, David Jameson says, this is true. Alan McGee, the mogul who signed Oasis to Creation Records, refused to be in the same room with me on the grounds of class prejudice. This day and age. It goes both ways, guys. It goes both ways. This was the Wings guy. This was the last night. I mean, the amount of shit he's given folk, and it was quite. I was loving it. I went to the gym last night, and when I'd gone for a run, and I came back after the gym, and he'd written all these messages like raging. I was like, I get up, you fucking teapot, man. I was like, I'd pretty much forgotten I'd even had an exchange with him. I was like, they bar, pal. It was great to see him flapping and like, you know, because he is he's a sneaky wee fucker, like he's an absolute bellend, you know. So right, okay, this was this guy Stuart Smith, incidentally, for years has crawled around the things that I've done and said and stuff, and been like poured this snootiness and that. You know, he's an absolute walloper. But anyway, let's go to. So this was the Simon Price piece, which is, I mean, Simon Price definitely knew what he was doing, because he's now got 2.5 million views, like, you know. So it must have been clickbait to one extent or another. But I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to nip away for just a few minutes, and I'll return, and we'll look at the Guardian. What's that? Sam Wills says, Oasis is just a distraction from people to watch while the furniture is being moved around in the background. This is true, but they also they do need to, like, you know. However we can interpret it, like, they still have to go and rehearse and then get on the stage and play the gigs, right, and then get paid millions of pounds. So it's like, it is a thing that is happening, unless that itself is just an illusion, like, you know, which, you know, who knows. Who knows in this time that we're living in. I'll be back shortly, people.
What's your name, scumbag?
Yo, it's the scumbag kid on his scumbag shit. You don't wanna know where this scumbag lives. It's the scumbag kid on his scumbag shit. You don't wanna know.
Sex offender. Sex offender. Sex offender. Oh.
An absolutely incredible atmosphere.
It's their danger being unsolved. Just a and also survival explains this. Lovely, of course, to see the city so full.
Scotland's in a hearse. Scotland's in a hearse. We're on a hearse.
Okay, it's me. Who else did you expect it to be? Okay, so this, it was very clear. It was very clear who, you know, there's a clear class distinction with the Oasis situation. But let's have a look at Simon Price's article, because it's now. So Simon Price says, I mean, this is Simon Price. Now, like I said the other day, like, I do not really like judging people on how they look, so I will definitely not have any comment to make about Simon Price. He actually looks alright. I mean, he appears to have some kind of antennae, so maybe he's receiving and transmitting somewhere there. I don't know what's going on with that. Anyway, he says, stop the celebrations. Oasis are the most damaging pop cultural force in recent British history. Dismal lyrics, plodding tunes, and prehistoric political views. Why is everyone so happy that the Gallagher brothers are back? Okay. So 15 years of Punch and Judy. How long is the article? Just to see. It looks manageable. It looks manageable. So 15 years of Punch and Judy bickering between Liam and Noel Gallagher has ended with the inevitable. Oasis reforming for a UK and Ireland tour. And a giant payday. Money talks, especially when Noel has a reported £20 million divorce settlement to cover. Ooh, there's a bit of gossip. Cue wild celebrations from the section of the British public who are still nostalgic for the simpler times of Euro 96 and the first Blair administration. Fucking, what, the section that just re-elected fucking Tony Blair's bastard simulacra. Britpop's coming home. What was it? What's his name? Danny and Withnail, didn't he? He was like, your hair is your antenna. I think maybe that's what Simon Price is giving it. I'm not among them. And here's why. I genuinely believe Oasis are the most damaging pop cultural force in recent British history. It's not fucking that recent. It's like 30 years ago since they first popped up, is it though? Like, how, it's like we're getting on. Like time is moving. It's easy to attack them for being musically regressive. After all, they didn't just stop the clocks, to quote the title of their 2006 best-of, but rewound them by 30 years. But the real problem is that they set social attitudes back even further. Okay. I'll never forget being present at the Q Awards, and this is just, yeah. We know you never forget being present at the Q Awards because you probably fucking tell everyone at every boring dinner party you ever fucking go to, like, you know? Past the fucking... past... Oh, okay. When Liam Gallagher repeatedly heckled Robbie Williams with queer and Kylie Minogue with lesbian, as the assembled music business and media tittered nervously, reluctant to kill the goose that laid the golden egg. It's one of the ugliest scenes I've ever witnessed. This wasn't a one-off either. In 2016 on Twitter, he called Russian football hooligans batty boys. And in 2018 used another homophobic slur, bum chums, against Noel, Johnny Marr and Paul Weller. I mean, like, I didn't realise that we'd reached utopia. You know, we've now got a genocide, like, you know. And this is the problem, isn't it? This sense of this kind of moral purity. It's like, you know, let's induce sort of like, let's have exponential social deprivation, harsher economic circumstances, you know, absolutely destroy our public services, stick 60 kids in a school classroom whilst everybody else goes to private school and gets like, you know, home tutored and that, you know, and quinoa for their breakfast. And then he wants to moan about sort of like, you know, rather sort of, you know, casual homophobia stuff. You know, it's like, it's hard, you know, is it pleasant? No, it's not pleasant, but is it that, Christ almighty, you know what I mean? Noel too has repeatedly expressed prehistoric views, complaining about a hip-hop artist, Jay-Z, Oh, this will be his white saviour complex, like, you know what I mean? Because it's because the hip hop guys like Black and that, you know what I mean? Like, you know, complaining about a hip hop Jay-Z headlining Glastonbury in 2008. I mean, fucking hell! It's like, well, who gives a fuck about Glastonbury? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, what twat? Oh, look at that. See it that way, right? What a fucking. Though he'd softened his stance by the time Stormzy headlined in 2019. And it sounds like this guy's like got a total boner for Oasis. Like, he seems to know everything about them. Seems to know everything they've said and done. Hold on, we've got some. This guy sounds a tool. Clearly nostalgia. Oasis was the end of the Tories, not the start of Labour. Morning Glory was 95. Labour didn't get in till 97. Great point. Good point. Already, yeah. Pedant alert. It's not really pedantic, is it? It's like it's facts. Stone cold facts from Arpignon. I like that. Normal look. Ed Miliband, yes, Ed Miliband is a fucking communist. 2015, and later Jeremy Corbyn in similar terms. And what is this like? This guy basically is obsessed with Oasis. It's projection, isn't it? He's acting like he's basically obsessed with them. In 2021, he appeared on the front page of The Sun calling Prince Harry an effing woke snowflake. I think he should be hanged for these crimes, to be honest, like, you know. And in 2024 complained about Glastonbury being too woke. Like, the more he writes this article, the more I might even try and get a ticket to go and see. The more I'm actually, I was never really that fussed about them, like, you know what I mean? But the more he writes, the more I like Oasis, like, you know, the more about Glastonbury being too woke. Hint, when anyone uses the word woke as an insult, they're immediately emblazoning another word across their own forehead, which also begins with W. Okay. Wide. I don't know. It's no coincidence that Oasis are the band of choice for flag shaggers and reform voters. This guy is an astronomical penis, isn't he? This guy basically is a penis. It's remarkable how often their fans have the butcher's apron on their Twitter bios, as opposed to their pronouns, like, you know, like Christ almighty. Just as Noel had it painted on his kids. This guy sounds like a fucking absolute walloper, eh? Oasis apologists. I never knew that being a fan of a band made you like an apologist. I think we all hate that guy. So what's his name? Simon Price must have just decided. Like, Simon Price is indulging in it. It's sort of, you know, it's like they have that thing, Death by Cop, where someone just causes a scene so that the cops turn up and assassinate them. Like, you know. I think there's something similar going on for Simon here. Death by Oasis. It's kind of like, it's almost, you'd think it was satire. I mean, it's almost like a sort of Stuart Lee could have written this as satire, maybe, you know, but maybe not. But it's like Oasis apologists in the media. Well, I'm not in the media, and I didn't know I was an Oasis apologist. But I have essentially brushed over all of this stuff already. It's like, calm down, son. Oh, Simon, did somebody call you a bad name? That's a shame, Simon. Calling calling Noel a legend. Simon's a shit failed musician, isn't he? It's clear. Simon's a failed musician. He made some fucking esoteric ambient fucking sound music, like some sort of like noisecore or something, and absolutely nobody gave a fuck about it. And that's why this is why he's taken to like just raging, raging at these working class lads that have made it big and have got more money than Simon could ever possibly imagine. Who gives good copy and chuckling at Liam's banter, arguing that Oasis are the people's band or the voice of a generation. I don't think it's much of an argument. It's almost like it's not really up for dispute, is it? Like, the fact of the matter is, right, most of the folk I know who absolutely love Oasis, they're all working class. And I don't think they're exclusively a working class band, but they're massively loved by working class folk, you know? It's off that generation predominantly, and then there's a whole younger kids. But even like you know, it used to drive Scotty mad, but Natalie, you know, my protege, you know what I mean, or rather, you know, the star, you know, she just loved Oasis, man. She absolutely, I mean, she loved all music, but she loved Oasis, you know, and she was post that generation, really, you know. And there's still young cats now. They love Oasis. These people hate people enjoying themselves. Keith Flint's embarrassing cousin. And that the Gallagher's are expressing the views of the masses in the vernacular of the masses. When you dare to challenge that, you are invariably accused of snobbery. No shit, Sherlock. Against a band who have been dubiously anointed as the sole authentic musical mouthpiece of the proletariat. No, what these people can't stand, they want to define the proletariat on their terms. You see, because this is total vampire castle chat. This is bourgeois liberal, post-identitarian identitarian politics expression of that, and it's like they hate the working classes, and the only time they ever want to have the working classes discussed is on their fucking terms. They get to decide what the working classes are and aren't, and you'll see examples of this. There's loads of examples of this over the past few days. There's some guitar guy in Glasgow. Somebody kept sending me his tweets. He's blocked me, but he's called I'd have to check, Robert somebody, and he's another one that was going disputing the fact that they're working class, basically going like, oh come on, they're not actually, like, that's the vibe. It's like, how the fuck are they not working class? You know, it's like, why they don't even want to. It's like they hate them, but they want to deny them. They want to deny them their working class credentials, if you like. You know, this has been a great cultural moment, really, to be honest. Let's be honest about this. These people are really exposing themselves now. They can feel their woke sort of castle just crumbling around about them. It's kind of like at the end of, like, it's like Rod Sterling. No, not Rod Sterling. Who was the guy in Journey to the Centre of the Earth? You know, when like it all starts crumbling and they have to get out. It's like the temple starts falling down. You know, it was like Sinbad or something. One of these films. It's like that. It's all collapsing around about them, isn't it? Their pronoun fortresses are just tumbling at the ground, like, you know, the walls of Jericho, the walls of pronouns. What have we got here? But the Gallagher's can't outflank me on class. Is that right, Simon? We're getting into delusion territory now. At the risk of writing a Glamorgan version of the Four Yorkshiremen sketch. Here we go. He's basically giving it like, I'm considerably more prolier than thee, or whatever like that. You know, at the risk of writing a Glamorgan version of the Four Yorkshiremen sketch. Well, you're about to write it. It's not at the risk. There's no risk in there's no risk incurred here. You know? The basic facts of my upbringing are these: single parent. How many aces have you got, like, you know? Single parent family. Permanently skint. Never, what a fucking wet wipe, eh? Never had Never had a car, never had a telephone, never had a breakfast, never had a dinner. The TV kept getting repossessed. Never. And I lived in 7 different flats and houses before I left home. Clearly nobody wanted to live with you. I've seen leafy Burnage and the house Liam and Noel grew up in. And we never lived anywhere as big as that. Jesus wept, eh? Is this real? Where are we? Nor can they outflank me on age. I'm slightly younger than Noel, what? And guitarist Paul Bonehead Arthurs, a bit older than Liam. This is like a child. This is like a primary school child wrote this. This is. Are we surprised? It's the Guardian, or the Granuad, or whatever they call it. Like, I mean, this is mental, eh? Is anyone still on X? A bit older than Liam and the others. I'm from their class. I don't know why this is doing it. Am I running out of battery or something? I might be. I'm from their class and their generation. But the inconvenient truth is that no class is a homogeneous class, and nor is my generation. So why have you attempted to kind of like, you know, suggest that it is in some ways by writing that? Oasis have been presented as the true voice of the council estates from the very start of their career. But what of their less stereotypical but equally working class 1990s contemporaries? Don't they count? No band was more aware of class politics than Sheffield's Pulp, for example. But Pulp were arty and sang about outsiderdom and dressed like Oxfam dandies instead of Arndale centre townies. So they are considered somehow less real than their Mancunian peers. This guy just hates them, doesn't he? This guy just can't stand them. I can't even be, but I don't know if I can continue, to be honest. I'm finding it is... We're nearly there. Christ. So they are considered somehow less real than their Mancunian peers. Meanwhile, the Manic Street Preachers are as working class as they come, but refuse to conform to lads cliches, played with androgyny and homoeroticism, and wore their state education on their leopard print sleeves. The Gallagher's knuckle-dragging ideas on sexuality and politics arguably shouldn't matter. Well, fucking, because they didn't. Because they fucking don't, right? Because it doesn't matter. Right? We're all familiar with separating the art from the artist. Are you? Really? Though everyone's mileage varies on where to set the line in the sand. That's the first honest statement in his entire article. But the art needs to at least be good. Oasis, memorably described by the late Neil Kulkarni as English Rock Defence League, offer nothing but sludgy, trudgy, brontosaurus-bottomed waddle, perfect for that adult nappy gait so beloved of their singer and fans. What a fucking snooty bastard, eh? Lyrically too, they are dismal. This promisingly mischievous Elsa Alcala-Seltzer rhyme of debut single Supersonic soon gave way to dull platitudes that might as well have been written by AI. But the problem is the music. But the problem is the music. Oasis don't do fast songs. Noel plays his guitar as if he's scared it will break. An Oasis's funkless, sexless plod is always carefully pitched below the velocity at which fluid dynamics dictate that you might spill your lager. Is there anything more useless than a rock band that doesn't rock? Hold on, funkless, sexless plod. if I had to describe an image that made me think of funkless, sexless plod, I don't think I could do better than that. Right, anyway. We got through that. It's pretty painful. It was pretty painful to say the least. Well, we've gone from I really need to sort this mic out. We've gone from taking some time to listen to the social ills of Scottish society to the social chaos of Oasis. God, what a tedious chap. What a tedious chap. And lots of people are in it. The only article you'll ever need to read, every word is true. This is Simon Price's article is a great place to. It's kind of everybody that's supporting it is obviously a cunt. What does this say? Don't like cancelled musicians. Where's it gone? Oh wait, sorry. I'm getting a bit confused here. I also don't like music I don't like. Keith Flint's embarrassing cousin. Definitely. John's talking about if you want to actually witness the dark underbelly of Edinburgh, just walk past the access place on the Cowgate Monday to Friday daytime. You've got to feel sorry for those folk. Right. We've run a little bit longer than usual. I don't mind. I'm happy that we've had a nice consistent level of cats this morning. Tomorrow is Friday, and it will be the last. Are we there? It'll be the last the X of August, which means we'll have had a full month of the X. And maybe you can let me know what you think about that. Let me know what you think about this month of the X and where we've gone, where we've been, and perhaps we can have a little think about where we might want to go, if anywhere. Who knows? I haven't settled on any particular thing or theme, but for a departure. But hold on. Let me have a look here. But yesterday I was. I'm proud of you, bud. I'm proud of us all. I'm proud of you all. I must say, I didn't know how this would start. I didn't know how it would end, or indeed if it would end or will end. But we're definitely at the end of the month tomorrow, and that's an achievement. That's an achievement for all of us. Yesterday, when I was doing something on the computer, I found an old image of myself from years ago, and it was me. It was me in Jamaica. I don't know if it won't go there. It's like I like this old image, you know. Check that guy there. What a wee fucking wido. And that's my favourite place, where I'm sat there, in that place there. And so I'm going to play out, and I'm going to go to my island, and I'm going to leave yous all. Oh, hold on a minute. Here's me back in this this mode of. I'm going to leave you all with a a classic by Bonnie Whaler. So I hope you all have a nice. Oh, we don't want that. We don't want these noises. I hope you all have a great Thursday, and I'll see you all back here tomorrow at 10 in the morning, I hope, for the last What the X of August. Have a good day, folks. Ciao. Wait a minute. That's not the track that I was looking for. That's not what I was looking for. This is what I was looking for. I mean, I do like that other track, but this is what I want.
There's a land that I have heard about so far across the sea. There's a land that I have heard about so far across the sea. To have you on my dreamland would be like heaven to me. Have you on my dreamland would be like heaven to me. We'll get our breakfast from the tree. We'll get our honey from the bee. We'll take a ride on the waterfall, and all the glories, we'll have them all. And we'll live together on that dreamland and have so much fun.